many times, as I said many times at last year's COP26 last year, this is a critical time for our planet and there's an urgent need to take urgent action to support biodiversity and our climate. Ireland has already enacted legislation to put a legally binding target of reducing our emissions by 2030 to 51% below 2018 levels. We are committed to reaching climate neutrality by 2050 as set out in our climate action plan. In Ireland, this will involve policies and measures for decarbonisation in each sector of our economy and our society. Many of you here today, scientists, peatland experts, conservationists, community leaders, landowners, farmer and policymakers, are already playing a vital part in addressing these crises. And as you know better than anyone, the conservation and restoration of the world's peatlands are a vitally important component of the global effort to reduce emissions and improve biodiversity. Ireland holds over 50% of the total habitat resource of raised bog and 99.9% of that blanket bog within the EU Atlantic Biogeographic Zone. We are undertaking significant actions to help reverse losses that have occurred due to various pressures and threats to our peatlands over the years. We're engaging with stakeholders, surveying, monitoring, researching, and developing new policies and schemes to allow natural conditions in our peatlands to be reinstated. Over recent years, the increase in funding in Ireland has allowed for a significant acceleration in the original roadmap for restoration and rehabilitation of peatlands. Funding programs such as Interreg and LIFE have been important instruments enabling peatlands restoration projects and supporting environmental nature conservation and climate action projects throughout Europe. I'm delighted that the National Parks and Wildlife Service of my department were in a position to be a partner in this Interreg Care-Peat project, undertaking enhanced restoration techniques on a project site at Cloncrow Bog Natural Heritage Area in County Westmeath and providing advice in other areas. The recently concluded LIFE Raised Bog Restoration Project, The Living Bog, has restored raised bog habitats across 12 special areas of conservation, exceeding its original target. The LIFE Wild Atlantic Nature Project and the LIFE Peatlands and People Project are other significant peatlands restoration and rehabilitation initiatives that are underway in Ireland on a regional level, in addition to blanket bog projects supported under the Interreg VA programme. Ireland's enhanced decommissioning rehabilitation and restoration scheme encompasses the rehabilitation of approximately 33,000 hectares of peatlands previously harvested for peat extraction for electricity generation, and will provide major benefits in these areas. So these are just a few examples of the work in progress across Irish peatlands. There are also a number of communities, landowners and academics around Ireland who are working together to play a vital role in conserving, understanding and reconnecting us to our peatlands. I'm really looking forward to hearing about the various projects, approaches and strategies underway across Europe at the conference today. Here in Ireland, we face challenges surrounding peatlands management, which I'm sure are similar to what other countries have encountered. Financing and resources must be secured. Land ownership issues surrounding bogs can be really complicated, and significant scientific investigations and preparatory work must be undertaken before work on peatlands can commence. However, these challenges can be overcome, and by sharing and discussing each other's countries' experiences, as we are doing here today, we do hope to discover innovative solutions to these challenges. For example, Ireland's Wild Atlantic Nature Project is piloting a results-based payment scheme that rewards participating farmers for environmental services, including biodiversity, water quality, carbon storage, and sequestration, by linking payments to the habitat quality. The scheme rewards farmers providing public services on their land, whilst ensuring the flexibility to farm and is showing encouraging results to date. This is a really, really positive scheme, and certainly from a farmer's perspective, it works really well. It's simple, it's effective, and it's measurable. The MPWS of my department recently coordinated a scoping exercise that has demonstrated the potential for establishing a financing model for restoring peatlands in Ireland that can provide significant carbon sequestration and commercial investment. Among the key results are a mobilisation of stakeholders at scale, ranging from community organisations and government departments to state-owned organisations and large corporations seeking land-based investments. In addition, the potential to combine Ireland's carbon tax and carbon markets and a future standard for landscape restoration was explored. Phase 2 of this project is currently being considered with the ambition to develop a roadmap for restoration of Irish peatland landscapes, including a legislative and policy framework for peatland investment as part of potential future carbon and biodiversity regulation, and to develop recommendations for an economic and funding model for carbon taxes and carbon offset payments to underpin a financial framework for large-scale peatland restoration and finance. I'd like to take a moment to also recognise the enormously valuable work that local communities and volunteers are doing as acting as custodians of our natural heritage. The Care-Peat project has not only demonstrated the importance of scientific collaboration, but also the significance that, as demonstrated through their work with groups such as Ethos, community-led projects and volunteer groups, can have a vital role in helping to promote and implement peatland conservation and restoration in Ireland. Through the Care-Peat project, it has impressively worked together with many partners and organisations, innovative companies and knowledge institutions, not only develop and test new equipment, methods and models, but also to produce comprehensive policy papers on carbon and blue credits for peatlands and strategies and approaches to peatlands restoration. Outcomes of projects such as those at Care-Peat are of great value to policymakers to inform the formulation of new strategies. Peatlands in particular is as a period of transition in Ireland. And as we move towards a greener, decarbonised economy, presently Ireland is undertaking a midterm review of our national peatland strategy. And this strategy sets out a cross-governmental approach to managing issues that relate to peatlands. Such issues include climate change, forestry, energy, nature conservation and restoration, land use planning, and agriculture, amongst others. A positive achievement of the strategy has been the coordinated focus and attention it has brought to bear on peatlands issues and the cooperation between government departments, state agencies and bodies that it has enabled. The original principles and actions of the strategy were a positive attempt to stake out a plan in a rapidly changing context, with the understanding that circumstances were evolving and that goals and actions would need to be updated to match them. It was always intended to be a living document. The midterm review will provide a broader assessment on where the strategy currently is, what it can achieve over the coming years, and if necessary, to propose changes to the actions set out in the strategy to refocus it in line with overall goals and the current context. It is hoped to be in a position to publish the outcome of the review shortly following a government approval. Projects such as Care-Peat are more important than ever in showcasing the benefits of cross-collaboration across Europe to manage and restore peatlands. Yesterday, at a workshop hosted by my department and the Department of Agriculture and Food and the Marine, some of Europe's finest peatlands experts began the initial deep dive into the possibility of forming a European peatlands initiative, and to hear results of an exploratory study initiated by Ireland on the key needs for such an initiative. I was delighted to have the opportunity to participate in the workshop, a successful initial meeting for all involved, and a really energetic day in the Custom House. I really was very encouraged by the outputs of yesterday's deliberations. It was wonderful. So I do look forward to the next phases of that. There is hope that we can align our efforts and goals to conserve and restore our natural ecosystems in a partnership model, adopting a strategic approach across many policy areas. So now is the time to take all of the initiatives and work done to date on peatlands and to build upon them, and to create a knowledge base that peatland stakeholders can avail of all across Europe. Collaboration and sharing and exchange of expertise across nations in a spirit of positivity and cooperation is now more crucial than ever, as we Europeans and as a global society are to meet the climate action and restoration targets that we set for ourselves. I want to wish you all the very best for the deliberations here this morning, and to thank you for the invitation to speak at this important event. I feel really excited for the path ahead for our peatlands. I think there's incredible initiatives underway at European and global level, and Ireland is at the forefront of that. And that, as Minister, I'm delighted that we are partaking and taking part in such important initiatives. And I'm sure you're going to look forward to your field trips and all of the other studies that are involved today. So thank you again for your time this morning. Cormagat.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Minister, and for those kind words and summary of the state of play in Ireland. And I think you've also taken a little bit of the excellent summary of the Care-Peat project. So thank you very much, and I hope you're able to stay around throughout the day and listen to some of the content of today's conference. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. I do also want to make some some announcements. Is the conference is being recorded and will be shared. If those who are online have questions, please use the Q&A button, especially during the during each of the sessions. What we hope to have is a question and answer session towards the end of each session. So today, after the keynotes talks, if there's time, we'll have an opportunity for both in-person and online folks to ask questions. And for most of you online, your microphone and camera, including mine, is turned off. So our next speaker is Katrien Wijns. She is our the project coordinator from our lead partner, Natuurpunt. She studied biology at the University of Ghent with a focus in terrestrial ecology. Shortly after her studies, she started working for the NGO Natuurpunt. Katrien put Natuurpunt in a leading role, setting up and managing international partnerships and projects, particularly as part of the Interreg subsidy program. The projects typically put forward the central role of nature in a sustainable and carbon neutral society. For the moment, Katrien is coordinating the Interreg project Care-Peat, but also exploring new possibilities to set up peatland restoration projects in Europe. She does, yeah. Yep. Where's the folder here? Go to Zoom first. Yeah, okay. This one? Yep. Yep. No, no. Yep. There we go. Let me just share screen. So where the PowerPoint? Yeah, we need a folder. Where's the? We need a folder. Is this it? No, we need a folder. Around here. All right. What happened? So what we need to do is we need to go back in here. Oops. So we need to go in here. There we go. So this one. 0, 0. Sometimes it's not responding. That's a large. There we go. There you go. Okay, so full screen that. And then share on the Zoom. Let's go to Windows open now. Here's my Zoom meeting. Yeah. Ah. There you go. There you go. Okay.
Thank you, Terry. The microphone is on. Good morning, everyone. I'm very honored to welcome you to the Care-Peat conference on peatland restoration and management. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Katrien Wijns, and as Terry said, I am the project coordinator of Care-Peat. Sorry, it's not working. Okay, thank you. Well, I do this on behalf of.
Move closer to the microphones. Just push
Yeah.
that in. Yeah, push that tray in,
Okay.
and just move in front of the microphones. You don't need to lean into them, and you do need to project the voice a little bit.
And yeah, I need this to press the slides, but okay. Okay, so welcome. My name is Katrien Wijns. I am the overall project coordinator of Care-Peat. I do this on behalf of the organization Natuurpunt. Natuurpunt is an NGO that is based in Flanders in Belgium. And we manage and restore about 25,000 hectares of nature reserves in Flanders. Natuurpunt is very much a boots on the ground organization. We are carried by thousands of volunteers who are supported by a team of professionals. And though we are a local organization, we very much acknowledge the importance of transnational and cooperative projects such as Care-Peat. So about Care-Peat, we are a project funded by the Interreg Northwest Europe program. We are about 12 partners working together in 5 European countries: Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Ireland, and the UK. So the project started in 2019 and will run until December 2023. It holds a budget of about 7 million euros, of which 60% is funded by the European Union. So basically, we are a partnership of researchers and land managers working together also with the umbrella organization Eurosite. Here you have a list of all the partners, and you will surely get to meet them to get to know them better throughout the day. So in the project Care-Peat, we focus on climate mitigation as one of the key benefits of restoring peatlands. With this, we are reducing carbon emissions from peatlands and also restoring the natural carbon storage capacity of the peatlands. And to achieve that goal, we have 3 main objectives in the project. And first, of course, the heart of the project is the actual peatland restoration. In total, we restore about 650 hectares, over 9 pilot sites in 5 countries. And we do cover a wide range of peatland types, from raised bogs to poor fence, and also different stages of degradation, also including bare peat. But we're doing more in Care-Peat. We're also developing and also applying reliable greenhouse gas measurement methods and predictive models, which will be made available for land managers as a user-friendly decision support tool. And third, Care-Peat also really aims to scale up peatland restoration also after the project, and therefore we work on identifying socioeconomic models such as carbon credits and carbon farming. We're also raising political awareness and proposing new strategies to policymakers to protect and restore peatlands. And especially our partner Eurosite plays a very important role in securing the long-term benefits of the project by setting up transnational working groups, but also regional and national peatland platforms in the 5 countries. So this is really Care-Peat in a tiny nutshell. On a more personal note, I think the Care-Peat and the Care-Peat partnership is quite unique. And we are a diverse partnership of scientists, land managers, and network organizations that work together very intensively on a highly relevant team as part of a European project. As such, not as exceptional, but I do think we work together very intensively. Our cooperation is very strong. The partners are really learning a lot from it. I think the project is bringing partners outside their comfort zone, and we have partners who are experts in restoration, in science, who are also start engaging with local stakeholders, setting up regional platforms, providing input for national policy and socioeconomic benefits. So yeah, to me, it is quite unique. But our cooperation goes beyond Care-Peat, and together with a lot of projects and organizations, we are creating a momentum for peatlands. The time is now to restore and protect these very valuable ecosystems. And I think the events as today really strengthen us in our everyday work. It is in cooperation and exchange of views that we can grow and push our boundaries. Thank you very much. I am here throughout the day, so if you have any questions, just come and talk to me. I would like to take the opportunity before I give the word back to Terry to really thank you, Terry, and the entire NUI Galway and Eurosite crew for organizing this conference. I really think you pushed your boundaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katrien. We can keep share on. No? No? All right. Yep. So I have so I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the outputs and unique collaboration that the Care-Peat project has. Katrien and Malcolm have both summarized well some of the main objectives of the Care-Peat project. And throughout the few years that we've been working together, there's been some exceptional, I think, cooperations with the project. First, it was about how to design a proper restoration for each of the different and unique peatlands and wetland environments that we had for our project sites. As you all know, every peatland is unique. Every peatland requires a unique and individual approach to restoration to achieve these results. And we worked really well in that capacity to develop unique scenarios. And in fact, in the pilot site in Ireland, was originally designed for a smaller segment of restoration through traditional peat dam restoration methods. But as a result of this cooperation, we expanded those restorations to include a cell bunding that was recommended by our partners. So that helped enhance some of these restorations. And if you're on the field trip tomorrow to the Care-Peat pilot site, you can see those firsthand. The Care-Peat project is all about the care, and Care-Peat is carbon reduction and taking care of peatlands. And the second component of that was to monitor and measure our success via carbon reduction. And I think the other exceptional aspect of the Care-Peat project is that all the partners are monitoring the carbon emissions using the same methodology, and in many cases, the same instruments along similar time periods to generate the data that will go towards estimating these carbon savings. On top of that, as you've heard, and you will hear in the afternoon session, that is headed by our French partners, they are taking these data that we are collecting and working towards a decision support tool and future models to help predict and use that information for enhanced restoration and carbon reduction. The Care-Peat project also was successful with a capitalization initiative. That capitalization initiative is actually taking what we're learning from those carbon savings and carbon measurements and applying it towards some of these proxy measures that have been developed. One of which was through another Interreg project called the Carbon Connects project. And we have speakers today from that project who will tell us a little bit about some of the outputs. And we're also comparing our results that we use with those field measurements to those proxies, in addition to the SET tool, also with the guest methodology, which was developed by the Greifswald Mire Center. So some really successful outputs that we've had from that. The other thing that I want to talk about is some of the policy aspects. We've helped with the Common Agricultural Policy development towards recognizing peatlands and influencing policy change in that regard. We've developed socioeconomic scenarios to help push then the idea of using peatlands for carbon and carbon credits. Those types of efforts you will see in our first morning session right after our break in this very room. The best practices and how peatlands are managed and how peatlands can be managed in the future will be the topic of two different sessions with a slightly different twist. The morning session over, so it'll be a concurrent session. Those of you online will have a breakout room. And so it's one link and you'll go into a breakout room for one of those two areas. The policy talk will be here, and then the greenhouse gas or the restoration best practices will be in another room. If you go back into the atrium, you'll see a billboard with signs. You go down the stairs, and it's, if you will, kind of through this wall. So we go back downstairs. Those will be where the two concurrent sessions will occur, both in the morning and in the afternoon. So we'll have a session here after. So we'll have the morning keynote speakers, a break, and then we'll continue with the morning sessions. Next keynote speaker I would like to introduce is Dianna Kopansky. Dianna is based in Nairobi, Kenya, and is an expert in ecosystems and biodiversity. She delivers a suite of landscape management and climate change programs, bridging science to policy to contribute to the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. Dianna has worked in Africa for over 22 years on a range of issues within the emergency, humanitarian, and development fields. For the United Nations Environment Programme, she worked globally and has led teams to develop and implement projects such as the Global Peatlands Initiative, the UN RED Programme, Interfaith Rainforest Initiative, the UNDAF, and 17 MDGF Environment and Climate Change Joint Projects, to name a few. So without further ado, Dianna Kopansky.
So much, Terry. Thanks, Terry. Thanks to Care-Peat. Thank you, Eurosite. And thanks to the Irish government, especially Minister Malcolm Noonan, who is a great inspiration. And really, you need to celebrate the depth and breadth of knowledge that is captured in that leadership. That's rare and quite beautiful, as well as the passion. I think that through my career, I've had the pleasure to work with diverse communities, and I must say this tiny but mighty Peatlands community is super passionate. They have great heart. They know and believe in the potential. And what I am trying to do as for UNEP and as UNEP leading the Global Peatlands Initiative to try and open up the doors, raise the visibility, get the research and the work that you've been doing for years into the hands of people that make decisions and help them to make better decisions. So the Global Peatlands Initiative was formed in 2016 as a result of the emergencies that the Indonesian government was facing with their extreme peat fires. It was a health emergency, an environmental emergency, a climate emergency, as well as a financial emergency, as huge swaths of dried, drained, converted peatlands were on fire and still frequently are. And Indonesia came to the global community supported by some of our partners, 13 founding partners, including Wetlands International in this room, Ramsar, FAO, International Peatland Society. Many founding partners came together to respond to that plea from Indonesia and created the Global Peatlands Initiative. The Global Peatlands Initiative is, after 5 years, 47 partners strong. We support directly 4 countries, developing countries, financed by the International Climate Initiative, supported by the German government. But we support all countries to elevate, to advance, and to dig into the opportunity that these tiny but mighty ecosystems provide for their future, for nature, for climate, for resilience, and also for green and meaningful jobs, and futures. And we do that by working in 4 key areas. We have our first urgent action was, the science, collecting it, data harmonization, and just frankly, knowing where peatlands are and understanding how they're changing. And that work has been remarkable because there's so many different approaches through different definitions, through different mapping, through the ground truthing or the remote sensing, through private sector companies that are innovating, as well as the research community that are trying to really push boundaries through the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning around finding where peatlands are and monitoring their health and the aspects of them. And we have the pleasure to lead and guide a group of 32 top researchers, peatland researchers from around the world that are working together right now voluntarily to do a state of the world's peatlands, the global peatlands assessment. We have over 190 contributing authors representing each region and also diverse expertise. And we hope to be able to establish and put on a map, literally, the global peatlands state. This is going to be launched at the end of the year at the COP, and we hope that this will also inspire new research, new gathering of data and intelligence to use a common approach so that we can elevate, harmonize, and complement the state of knowledge of peatlands globally. The second work area we work in is wet livelihoods, paludiculture, conservation, and sustainable management. And we're seeing real innovative partnerships popping up. We've got amazing results and inspiration from Peru. And Peru is one of our Global Peatlands Initiative partners. They are in partnership because they have this foot in both realities. So we have Indonesia that is an absolute climate emergency. And Peru has a foot in the reality of the highland peatlands that are overgrazed. They're starting to dry because of the climate impacts, as well as the land use approaches. And they're starting to get on fire. I don't know if you've heard about Tierra del Fuego, which is a special peatland in the very south cone of South America between Argentina and Chile that has been on fire. And that's really heartbreaking and scary, actually. And so Peru has a foot in that reality of their high altitude peatlands being quite degraded and at risk, and the foot in the other reality, which is the lowland peatlands stretching all the way across to Brazil in Amazonia, which are really incredibly pristine. And there's communities working there with private sector partners that want to have a green future, to harvest the fruits of the aguaje palm and turn that into a healthy and feel-good soft drink, not a soft drink, but a juice. This was a soft drink company that was committed to dropping sugar and energy into diets. And they've converted actually their entire business into healthy and sustainably harvested juices that are power packed as well as meaningful for the communities that sustainably harvest those fruits in the peatlands where they live. So we have also that foot in the lowland reality, pristine peatlands. And then we have the two Congos. I'm not sure if any of you are involved or connected to the work of Darky, Simon Lewis, Ifo Suspense, and Corne Wango from the Congo Peat project, but they worked really hard over a series of 7 years to map and identify the Congo peatlands, the Cuvette Centrale peatlands, which have close to and probably more than 32 gigatons of carbon. If that place starts to degrade, starts to be converted, starts to be impacted by climate change, but most likely by land use change and human interaction, that's 25 years of US emissions at full economic force that can be released. You know, those are the numbers that we're playing with when we are seeking and moving forward in a development pathway or a land use choice that is not informed by science. And that's a really important aspect of this piece of work that we do, is based on practice, based on science, research, and through an adaptive management approach, because we know that science is there, we know that science is emerging, and it will always continue to improve. But in my experience, decision makers, you know, they can walk into a casino and they'll walk up to the roulette table or blackjack and they'll choose black or red. It's not great odds, but they will make a decision with their finances that's based on the best information, gut feel, or personal experience that they have. And I think that that's really important for the scientific community to understand that the science doesn't have to be perfect. We know where we're headed with this. And as we engage with policymakers, science needs to respond to their needs, the questions that need to be answered by policymakers so that they can make well-informed decisions for the environment, for people, and for the economy. And so another area of work that we dive into is this space of laws, legislation, finance facilities, institutions, and resource mobilization. And we're at a really interesting point as everyone dives in and people are really starting to scramble. I mean, it's remarkable. The private sector partners, foundations, peatlands are at the top of visibility of the agenda at the moment in many places. And we have a lot of resources, finances around. We need to, as a community, make sure that those resources, those finances, those investments do good, do the best that they can, not just do no harm. And that's what collaboration across place and space and across disciplines can provide. That security, that verification, guidelines, and approaches that we work together by speaking across disciplines, across perspectives, to come up with the best solution so that our climate future and our water resilience future and our biodiversity and nature future is as secure as possible. And at the heart of all of those pieces are people. We need to realize that the dynamic interests of individuals can come into play when you start a partnership or you start the work that you do. Try to step back, because peatlands are a really incredible ecosystem. They provide, in my view, a playground for this experimentation of collaboration. They've got a boundary. We can understand their dynamics. We can see the impact. They might be slow burners or slow accumulators, but they're a really important place. So the work that you're doing, the research, the practice that you're doing is really critically important, not only locally, regionally, but also globally. I started my career and worked on peatlands. I also then took what I knew from wetlands, biodiversity, and engineering into the drylands space and also into the emergency space. But what's been the common thread in my career and when I see impact is when people come together without competition, and with true collaboration. And that's the future. I know that the scientific community, the publish or perish, is competitive nature, but there is a global movement that really needs to work on that culture to also break down those barriers and actually help scientists collaborate across disciplines, across place, across language, and across space. And I'm really happy to be part of a group led by the Scotland's Royal College with Mark Reid and others to lead a research working group. That research working group is informal, and we gather and we share and we join up for funding opportunities, but we also try to keep each other abreast of the latest science. There's 195 researchers from around the world, and the most impactful aspect is that we're seeing researchers from Japan connecting with researchers in the Democratic Republic of Congo, or researchers in the Rockies connecting with the researchers and people working in Patagonia and in the Andes. So that place and space is safe for reaching out across geographic boundaries, across language, and also across disciplines. And I would encourage you to test yourself. You're in a space, in a university or in a working place, in the academic community, that actually you can walk across the hall. You can walk to the next building. Do it. Do it. It's so important to understand people's perspectives and the work that they're doing, because the work that they're doing can come into your portfolio and help you also be more successful, more impactful, and also more appropriate. We've been working hard as the Global Peatlands Initiative. We've achieved some pretty exciting things. I'll share a few of them. The United Nations Environment Assembly Resolution was adopted in 2019, and that is a resolution that's adopted by all countries in the world. And that's a commitment for all countries of the world to work together toward the conservation and sustainable management of peatlands. And those countries also identified other elements of interdisciplinary research advancement, tropical peatlands, institutional building, financial mechanisms and management, and also innovation and inspiration. And that's something that every person that is a voting individual should be raising with their governments, because these governments have made a commitment similar to the commitments made in relation to the Paris Agreement, although the Paris Agreement, of course, is legally binding, and similarly to what's being negotiated now in the Global Biodiversity Framework. So peatlands are also a great place where collaboration across these multilateral environmental agreements can be applied. They can be experimented with and played with. And some peatlands might advance areas in the Ramsar Convention or migratory species, or in the Climate Convention, but all of that counts. And when you get one, you get another. So that's what we're trying to do as well, is to bring together the multilateral environmental agreements for a call to action collectively on peatlands, being such a special space. Action for peatlands, as we know it at the moment, and since the real success of the Peatlands Pavilion at the COP in Glasgow, action is fast. It's moving fast, furiously, but it is moving in the right direction, and that's really exciting. So those of you that have been working for decades on this piece, I really hope that you're feeling really proud of the work that you've done, because that has allowed us to get to this point. It's only standing on the shoulders and the work of others that we've managed and been enabled to actually raise the global profile, but also garner the commitments and also get attention from finance aid and private banks and private sector to work and grow in this space. But we now really need the guidance. We need this experience from Interreg. We need people from outside of this community to know about it, to be inspired by it and informed by it, and adapt their own portfolios to take on the lessons, take on the work, and to really help to scale this comparison and knowledge. So I really encourage everyone that's working in the peatlands restoration space, as well as in the conservation space, to join the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. It's a decade, although the title zooms in on restoration, in the UN General Assembly resolution that designates 2020 to 2030 as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. It includes protection critically and conservation. And for peatlands, that is vital. We can't just only activate on restoration, but we must immediately halt degradation and include protection. So I encourage you, as you embark on the work of restoration, to ask your funders, ask your policymakers, ask your partners to take a place and space that's equal and protected. We need to demand that for peatlands, for now and for the future. We need to demand that peatlands financing equally includes protection and conservation. Otherwise, we'll never make the Paris Agreement. We'll never make the goals that our entire planet is depending on. So with this new guidance, please work hard to rid yourself from competition and ego and drive into collaboration and togetherness, because through that drive for transparency and working together, we can actually work to harmonize the data and approaches. We can also help with contextualizing and experimenting, and including the specificity in different places and spaces. But we can't do that if those results sit in this room or on a website. So please do share on the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, as well as the virtual Peatland Pavilion. We are garnering an entire new global hub of knowledge there. Plug in, it's free, and it will give you the visibility that you deserve and connect you up with other people that are working on similar or even totally different ecosystems or places around the world. From science to policy, that is vital, but science needs to answer the right questions for policymakers to make their best decisions. From practice to finance, we won't get to finance large-scale restoration unless the practice has proved itself, unless we get the numbers right, the verification, the guidance. And that has a brighter, broader future, because I think with following the pandemic, there's this connection to home and space and place and to the land that people want to get back out there. People are moving themselves away from rural centers and moving back to their rural homelands. And I think that it's so important for our climate future that we give those people green and meaningful jobs, local jobs for everyone's common future. And we need to work together at scale and show what we're doing by registering the restoration work, because we need to re-wet 50 million drained peatlands by 2030. It's a small amount of the world's land surface area that needs work, but we can do it if we do it together. Please do share your knowledge across the corridors, across the disciplines, across the continent, and across the table. I am here, my colleague as well, Julie Van Offelen, is here, and we're here to connect you to other people that might be working on similar places and spaces and work in the world, or to also open doors that might not have been opened before. And we also hope you'll open those doors for us. We don't have a magic key to all the doors that need to be unlocked in order to move it forward at scale and pace, but we'll do our best. So thanks very much. I'm super excited to be here with you in Ireland. My first time, can you believe that? But Really happy to be, and thanks so much, Nal, as well, for your hospitality and grace. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dianna. Breaking down barriers and opening doors, I think are excellent perspectives to have. And certainly one that we've seen here in Ireland over the last few years where peatlands have really come into the fore. So next, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Franziska Tanneberger. Franziska works on fen and mire ecology and biodiversity, polluticulture and peatland restoration, particularly within carbon schemes. She has coordinated peatland research and conservation projects in Germany, Russia, Belarus, and Poland, and also is a co-editor of the European Mires book. And she joins us online, and 1 second here. Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, nice
There we go.
to see you. I hope you can hear me.
We can see you and hear you. Thank you. We can see your screen.
Yes, and now you should see also my first slide,
Ah,
hopefully.
there we go. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be online with you. Actually, I had planned my trip to Ireland. Everything was arranged. I wanted to come with Aldert, our farmer, or a paludiculture farmer, but I had to cancel my trip because of a death in my family last Sunday. Still, I'm very happy to meet you online at least, and I hope to come for another time to Ireland to meet many of you in person. I will speak a bit about peatlands in Europe, about current condition, about challenges, and also make a small link to what we are doing at the Greifswald Mire Center currently, with a particular focus also on bogs and sphagnum paludiculture, because I think that's interesting for many of you. So looking at maps, Dianna introduced the global context. This is the global peatland map that we have at the moment as part of the global peatland assessment coordinated by UN Environment Global Peatlands Initiative. I think that it is hanging somewhere around in the building because Terry printed it, I think. And yeah, just to make you aware, of course, peatlands are globally distributed. We have a substantial share of them in Europe, but of course, large parts are outside Europe. What is special in Europe is as well that we have a long history of peatland studies, but also of peatland use. There is evidence from Greece of wetland drainage for 3,000 years ago. The first scientific book on peatlands and peat extraction was published in the Netherlands already in 1658. Peatland drainage was taught at universities in Russia, for example, in the late 19th century. And on the background of this slide, you see a picture of Albrecht Dürer from 1495, we think, which is the first painting of a peatland in Europe. Much of the knowledge about peatlands in Europe has been compiled in a very heavy book published in 2017. It actually took from 1991, an agreement of the International Mire Conservation Group made at that time in Dublin to do such a book as a joint work of peatland scientists, peatland conservationists from all countries in Europe. And yeah, it was finalized in 2017. It has country chapters for all different countries in Europe with 134 national authors, and it is summarizing the knowledge to a large extent. In the course of this book project, we also produced a map of peatlands in Europe, which you can see here, and published it also separately together with all the national authors. Again, it is a composite map of all the national data sets, harmonized to a specific extent to give an impression of the global, of the European peatland area we have. We also looked at the biodiversity, the biogeography of peatlands in Europe. Europe is a continent very rich in mire diversity, and we have 10 mire regions, very different ones from Southern Europe up to the north, to the Arctic polygon peatlands that we have in Europe, and 52 sub-regions in Europe. So rich diversity. And this allows us, for example, also to check to what extent the peatlands in Europe are protected. So together with the World Conservation Monitoring Center in Cambridge, we did an analysis stratified by the Mire regions of Europe to look at the degree of protection. And this is actually pretty low. So you see the Mire regions here, you see in red peatlands outside protected areas and in blue inside protected areas. And of course, you will be aware that being located in a protected area does not automatically mean that a peatland is equally protected. So there is a strong demand to increase protection. You are clearly aware that a high degree of the peatlands in Europe is degraded, is drained. Again, this is a map just per country showing the degree of degradation in percent of the area. We estimate that 25% of the total peatland area in Europe is degraded. Looking only at the European Union, it is much higher, it's 50%. And in several countries, including my own country, Germany, it is more than 90% of the total peatland area. This is the reason why Europe is one of the 2 global peatland greenhouse gas emission hotspots. On this figure, you see the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions from drained peatlands in megatons CO2 equivalents. Per country or geographic unit. So on the left-hand side, it starts with Indonesia as the country with the largest peatland greenhouse gas emissions. And then the European Union is already the second best, so to say, followed by the Russian Federation, China, Malaysia, and many other countries. And in the smaller part of this figure, you also see it stratified per country of the European Union. And then here we start with Germany, we have Finland, Poland, and also Ireland with high emissions from drained peatlands. The next map is a very recent result from a joint study with people from Wageningen University, Luke in Finland, and Greifswald Meyer Center. We prepared a first greenhouse gas emission map for the European Union based on the map of peatlands, of course, and then with assigned mainly IPCC emission factors. And so it is now also possible to identify where the emissions come from and where the hotspots are. And you see that Northwest Germany is clearly a hotspot, but also Ireland features very dark on this map with high emissions from drained peatlands. The main cause of emissions is drainage for agriculture. And here it is important to note that only a small part of the agricultural land, on a European Union scale, only 3%, cause large parts of the greenhouse gas emissions related to agriculture, namely 25%. So you can also turn it in a way that it is a big potential that only on a small area of land you can achieve a lot. And in total, 5% of the European Union's annual greenhouse gas emissions come from drained peatlands. I'd like to continue with some insights and lessons learned from the dialogue with 134 peatland scientists and conservationists from all European countries that work together for this European Myers book. All over Europe, peatlands have received much less attention of politics and society than forests. And these slides are now coming along with a few pictures, maybe from unknown peatlands to you. This, for example, is in the Republic of Macedonia. In Europe, hardly any Myers have survived in areas with climatic and edaphic suitability for arable agriculture. Here you see potato farming on a drained peatland in Germany. Peatland destruction is mostly not a sneaking process, but the result of concerted and large-scale action. Enormous areas of peatlands have been drained as part of youth campaigns, unemployment relief works, and works of prisoners in the past. These rapid developments were initially stimulated by good results in terms of land productivity, as you can see here with very nice carrots in Switzerland. Setbacks like soil degradation and subsidence only became apparent decades later, and much of the damage is irreversible. So far, only less than 1% of the drained peatland area in Europe has been revetted. So our conclusion was, when we handed over this book at the UNFCCC side event in May 2017 in Bonn to the head of the Indonesian delegation, you can see here a very the person next to Hans Joosten and between Hans Joosten and Dianna Kopansky sitting there, our conclusion was that if the South can learn anything from the North, from Europe, then it is how not to do things with regard to peatlands. But of course, looking now into the future, we can say quite some things that we know. And Dianna pointed at that very importantly in her talk. We know peatland conservation implies primarily the conservation of its hydrology. We know that to conserve a peatland, we have to conserve its entire peat body, and in case of fens, its mineral catchment area. Conservation is much more cost-effective than restoration, and revetting stops subsidence and substantially reduces greenhouse gas emissions as well as nutrient release. Last but not least, if you have to use peatlands, use them wet. And in the next slides, I would like to point at some of the key tasks we see in front of us and we are dealing with at the Greifswald Mire Center. And we would also like to encourage many of you to exchange about, to engage with. And one is clearly the improvement of knowledge that we have, the update of peatland distribution data, because we are losing peatland area all the time with degrading peat layers. So this is quite important, and we still have a lot of peatland that do not appear on the national maps. We also think that it is very important to critically review the national greenhouse gas inventories for organic soils. We did it for the European Union countries last year, and we discovered a massive underreporting. We estimate that 70 megatons of CO2 equivalents are not reported in the European Union from degrading organic soils. So this is something you also should look at the national level very critically. It is very important to improve communication. So we produce now a lot of infographics together with artists. For example, on the lower part of the slide, infographics about intact peatlands, drained peatlands, peatlands in paludiculture. We have now published in 6 languages. But we also collaborate with the Chilean artists collective for the Chilean pavilion on the Biennale in Venice. It's currently open, and there is a moss carpet from a study site in Northwest Germany, and we are doing a sphagnum lab together with them, for example. So it's very nice to present it at the Biennale in Venice right now. And for all this work, of course, to get the numbers right, to present numbers, to not be afraid of producing numbers about peatlands, but to get them right. The dialogue is very important. And again, a bit the German experience, we coordinated a German peatland dialogue for 3 years. And as also you in your countries, and I think Ireland is a prime example for this, the work in model regions is very important. So really meetings outside, field days, we do landscape walks, water works of the future are being discussed. And this is very important, especially with farmers and especially with the young generation of farmers. When we are doing this, we think it is very important to translate the societal objectives we have also to peatlands. And we started with this with the Paris Agreement, and we looked at the Paris Agreement, we looked at the IPCC 1.5 degree report, the net CO2, the net zero objective, and we created this peatland greenhouse gas pathway, where you see on the left side of the panel today's condition. Much of the peatland under different land use categories is here visible in red. It is dry, and we need to come along a pathway that is has an increasing green color indicating that the peatlands in the end, in this case in 2050, are almost all wet, except for some with settlements. And this is then along with 1.5 degree projections. You can discuss it, of course, you can discuss the timing of it, but we find it very important to frame future peatland condition in the discussion with people living in peatland areas. And we are preparing now, together with colleagues in other countries, also such pathways for other countries. At the same time, with an increasing area of revetted peatlands, we have now the chance, and I think also the responsibility, to study them, to better understand the revetted peatlands. Last year, we published an analysis of 240 near natural and 320 revetted fen sites in Europe from various countries. And we could show in the study that many of the revetted fens, we do not get back what we lost. We do not come back to their old selves. Some of them, yes, others not. So there's quite some variation in the revetted sites. And such studies can also be used to work further to assess greenhouse gas emissions in revetted fens, to assess other ecosystem services. And this is crucial for all our future work. Of course, crucial is also capacity. We need many more people to work on these topics. We have bottlenecks in many countries now already, open positions for peatland management and not enough people to actually fill them. And we need new funding streams. And so, for example, I think Indonesia is a good example. They created a peatland revetting agency, peatland restoration agency. And this very idea is now being discussed in Germany in federal states to create such agencies. Because also there is now a lot of money being mobilized for natural climate solutions. In Germany, it is 4 billion euro in the coming 4 years, but it's a big challenge how to get this money into the area, to the people using the peatlands, to the land users, to the landowners, to really change the condition of the peatlands. So money is not the only solution. Of course, it is important, but now we have a lot of challenges still left, how to bring it to the area. To involve the private sector is very important. So there are schemes for sponsoring peatland revetting, but also carbon credit schemes, but increasingly also to create demand for paludiculture projects, because we have farmers now maybe trying to start with paludiculture, but they need people to sell the biomass to, the products to. So demand for such projects is very important, to have companies becoming engaged in paludiculture value chains. And this is something we are starting now, for example, in an initiative with the Otto Group and Otto Company. Carbon credits is something that is being discussed also, I think, later today. We have existing schemes in Europe, and building on the existing schemes, I think it is possible and feasible to have common guiding principles for peatland credits in Europe, which is very important to develop it further. And we also think that alternative land use on peatlands is something that can be combined. For example, revetting and solar energy production on strongly degraded peatlands. So establishing solar panels at the same time while revetting the site, and then maybe even harvesting the biomass for paludiculture is an option that has potential and that should be demonstrated and studied. Last but not at all least, the political framework is very important. I would like to encourage everybody to engage in European Union policies and to shape European policies, which is possible. And together also with people from the Care-Peat project, we really discovered this when we engaged a lot in common agriculture policy in 2019 to 2021. For example, here with this joint position paper on peatlands in the European Union, with the University of Galway. I think this was very successful. We also had gained a lot of support from Irish MEPs for this, and this is really important. And this year it is very important for the carbon farming framework and for carbon removal certification. And then paludiculture is really crucial. I said that agriculture on drained peatlands is a main cause for the emissions. So finding solutions with the farmers is the main solution, the main way out. It is important to think spatially. We have a lot of nature conservation designations on peatlands. So an important step is in all peatland-rich regions to develop a spatial planning for paludiculture. This example here from Northeast Germany shows different areas of this. It's all colored parts are peatlands, and we have designated some parts for both wet grassland and cropping paludiculture, but some also only for wet grassland or pasture, but no cropping paludiculture is allowed. And this is very important also to give some security to farmers where they can do what kind of paludiculture. And to finish my talk, a few slides about our sphagnum farming work. So this is the largest sphagnum paludiculture site in Northwest Germany, 17 hectares. We do a lot of studies there on emissions, on biodiversity, water demand, economy of the site, on water quality, for example. And interestingly, also sphagnum mosses harvested from this very site where they're transported now to Venice for the Biennale. So they are here on this gondola in front of the skyline of Venice. We have a large area potential for sphagnum paludiculture in Germany, both cut over box, 500 hectares, that's not too big, but also the bog grassland. This is 90,000 hectares. And on both types of sites, we are doing field trials on cut over box since 24 and on bog grassland since 2010. And this here is the long-term development of sphagnum lawn over 8 years. It has very well established, and after 8 years, we measured 80 tons of sphagnum dry biomass per hectare. The water table is being raised with sphagnum growth. And the first harvest was also carried out at the site with an excavator and a mowing basket, cutting the top part, and overall this is quite successful and feasible. A key challenge for sphagnum paludiculture is founder material. So we studied a lot of different sphagnum species from different parts of Europe to select for high productive species or provenances and to collect all these samples in a nursery in Greifswald. And we also studied how to most efficiently propagate the sphagnum, so selection from in a nursery, in a climate chamber, or in the field. And then it turned out that the production of inoculum by axenic cultivation from vegetative material was most successful, and mass propagation of founder material in a moss bed reactor. So happy to link you to our team doing this without going into all the detail now. And then to propagate it in the fleece culture in a vertical way. So there has been quite some research already. So for all this sphagnum work, there are still challenges, but I think this is a prime example how we also can build on each other's experience. And we are very happy to share these results and outcomes. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the further discussion today, at least online. Thank you.
Francesca, thank you very much. And I think on behalf of all of us here, thank you for your decades of research on peatland ecology and your work on peatland policy and policy reform. It's quite impressive and exceptional. So thank you. Now, next we have an address from Harm Schoten. And he is giving a virtual address. Yeah, just go back to Zoom. Yep. Oops, wrong one. Here. Yeah, no. Yeah, okay, you have it. All right. There we go. Thank you.
Dear people, on behalf of Eurosite, the European Land Conservation Network, I'm very happy to welcome you to the Interreg Care-Peat conference on peatland management and restoration. It's great to have all these interesting contributions of so many speakers. And of course, special thanks to our host, Galway University. My name is Harm Schoten, since 1 year director of Eurosite. As I learned from the Irish Minister Malcolm Noonan during COP26 in Glasgow last year, lots of Irish people introduced themselves as boggers, people who were, so to speak, born and raised in bogs. Well, I'm happy to tell you that I consider myself a bugger as well. Born and raised in the eastern parts of the Netherlands, already as a 6-year-old, I was searching for vipers, dragonflies, and black grouse in my home, and until today, I still monitor dragonflies in peated areas. As a child, I didn't know how much the landscape of peatlands has changed in less than a century, let alone that I understood something about the enormous consequences for nature and climate. This image shows it remarkably. In the Bargeveen, an area managed by our Dutch member Staatsbosbeheer, we are standing here on a hill of 12 meters height. Everywhere you look, the landscape has been excavated for peat extraction, up to 12 meters taken away. In just a few decades, a natural landscape of thousands of years old has been destroyed. But never forget, by people with good intentions and for good reasons, food and energy. Nowadays, there's no more excavation in the Bargeveen. However, peat is still used on a large scale for horticultural purposes. Now it no longer comes from the Netherlands or Germany, but from other parts of Europe, like the Baltic states. The problem has not yet resolved itself, but has shifted. A few years ago, the Bargeveen has been re-wetted on a large scale by Staatsbosbeheer. A first step towards the recovery of 1,200 hectares of raised bog, on the way from habitat type 7120 degraded to 7110 restored. But it's a drop in the ocean. In this map, you can see the original substrates of the Dutch landscape. Dark purple on the right side is a peatland of originally more than 200,000 hectares, of which almost nothing is left. Light purple to the left side is a very large-scale low fen area, still partly present, but in the process of burning due to drainage for agriculture. Here, the bottom is falling by on average 1 centimeter per year. For the time being, without that trend being reversed. Well, this story about my home turf applies to large parts of Europe. The last decades, a tremendous effort has been committed to restore peatlands. The European Commission's LIFE program has supported and continues to support nearly 400 peat restoration projects. The Interreg program supports successful restoration for nature and climate by financing innovative research measures. Interreg Care-Peat is an excellent example of this. Hopefully, the new EU restoration law will incentivize further peatland restoration. The new German government has decided not to wait for the new law, but announced to invest intensively in nature restoration, including peatland restoration. However, despite the large-scale restoration of degraded peatlands, their overall conservation status remains unsatisfactory. Article 17 of the Habitat Directive shows that only peatlands in remote or inaccessible areas in the Alpine, Boreal or Macaronesian biogeographical regions are in a favorable status. The rest is unfavorable bad or unfavorable inadequate. And we are only talking about protected peat areas. Most of the peatlands or soils with peat do not even have a protected status. This demonstrates that much more needs to be done. Eurosite, the European Land Conservation Network, is a European-wide network of governmental and civic society organizations working on nature conservation and land management. We provide networking and twinning services all over Europe. One of the most important questions of the Care-Peat conference today is whether and how European collaboration can accelerate the recovery of peatlands. The good thing is that we will only find answers through cooperation. So from the perspective of Eurosite members, I will mention 3 things that are important. 1, awareness of the importance of conservation and protection of peatlands for fighting climate emergency. Eurosite members support the global peatland press campaign and the UNEP Global Peatland social media campaign that started in the Peatland Pavilion during COP26. Young students on boardwalks explaining in clear words why re-wetting of peatlands is so important for the battle against climate change. 2. Sharing knowledge on how to overcome technical and financial barriers for peatland conservation and restoration. The Eurosite Peatland Restoration and Management Group probably is the first sustainable Europe-wide networking group on peatland restoration, where experience from Interreg and live projects are shared. Although there is good in-depth knowledge on the recovery of peatlands, much of that knowledge remains at national level. 3. Maybe the most important point, connecting to important stakeholders, mainly farmers. In 2021, Eurosite started the Agriculture and Biodiversity Conservation Working Group with farmer networks for more than 15 European countries. Working with farmers and private landowners is key to scale up. The Interreg Care-Peat capitalization call is rightly focusing on that. As a member of the Global Peatlands Initiative, Eurosite supports European collaboration and the development of the European Peatlands Initiative. This initiative could ensure the inclusion of national governments and key organizations necessary for success. My first year at Eurosite taught me that, despite the urgency, collaboration can take place in a relaxing atmosphere. I hope you will experience this atmosphere in Ireland. Enjoy, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Harm. So between Harm's message of how we can enhance peatland restoration and Franziska's suggestion of a peatland rewetting agency, I hope the minister is still on and is taking note of proposed Irish peatland rewetting agency. So next up, I would like to introduce our final keynote speaker of the day. That is Inge Keymeulen. She is the project officer at the NWE Interreg program. Inge is a geographer who has spent most of her professional life in Southern Europe, where in 1997, she first got in touch with the management of EU-funded projects. She was an EU project officer in the Mediterranean area from 2013 to 2018, supervising and monitoring EU-funded cooperation projects implemented in the northern, southern, and eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea basin. Since April 2018, Inge is a project officer at the Joint Secretariat of the NWE Interreg program in Lille, working mainly with projects addressing resources and materials efficiency and low carbon, with a focus on the support to the shift towards a low carbon economy in all sectors. Screen share. Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah.
That's not.
It's, yep.
Oh, there you go.
So, good morning, everyone. So as the last keynote speaker, I would like to give an overview of what made this project possible. So what is the background of the Care-Peat project? So Interreg Northwest Europe is a transnational program which funds projects, and the area that we are addressing is the one you can see. I say we are addressing because the current program will end next year. So it started in 2014 and it is running until the end of next year. So you can see that there's UK, Ireland, Belgium, Luxembourg, most of the Netherlands, the northern part of France, the southwestern part of Germany, and then Switzerland. Switzerland, of course, is not an EU country, but Switzerland decided that it was of their national interest to take part in this program. So they are participating in the program with own funds. how do I just with the arrows here?
Arrow down. Yep, we're-
Yeah. No,
hold
no.
on. Sometimes we have to tell it.
Okay. So the program has overall ambition to make Northwest Europe a key economic player and an attractive place to work and to live, with high levels of innovation, sustainability, and cohesion. So these three words, innovation, sustainability, and cohesion, are for us the key words of our strategic approach. So when it comes to innovation, our focus as a program lays on the support to enterprises to innovate. When it comes to low carbon, the focus lays on the support to the shift towards a low carbon economy in all sectors and the promotion of sustainable transport. While when it comes to resources and materials efficiency, we are looking to support new ways to produce more value with fewer materials. So overall, the ERDF stands for European Regional Development Fund. We had 372 million euros to allocate with a funding rate of 60%. So that means if you make a quick calculation that our projects are worth altogether more than 600 million euro. 102 projects were funded, and as I already said, our projects will run until the end of next year, or have the possibility to run until the end of next year. Doesn't mean that they must run until then. So when we focus on the low carbon program that we had three main areas, let's say. So one relates to the implementation of low carbon energy and climate protection strategies, while the second one relates to the uptake of low carbon technologies, products, processes, with the aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And then the third one is the one that focuses on transport systems, still with the aim to reduce greenhouse gas emission. So our project, or your project, Carbon Connects, is the one that relates, of course, to the implementation of combined mitigation and adaptation solutions. Where we funded two projects, Care-Peat and C-Connects. And I must say that this is only two projects that we are funding that are addressing climate adaptation and mitigation measures in the Northwest Europe area. So this also underlines the importance that Peatland has also for our program. So there are some similarities between the two projects. You will know them better than I do. I mean, with you, I mean the project partners, but both focus on peatland restoration and on the valorization as a climate change mitigation measure. And both will run until the end of next year. Then a bit an overview of partnership. It was already highlighted this morning, the importance of the partnership for your project. The way that you are working together, people get out of their comfort zone, as Katrien called it, in order to work together. So we also asked a bit to our projects what was for them the main added value of working together. So I have listed them up here. So it's an opportunity to learn from each other. It is a way to collaborate. It's to find new opportunities, to work on another skill, to learn from diversity, see it as an opportunity, to see cultural and economical differences as an advantage for working together. And so when we asked projects if they were willing to continue to cooperate, all of them said yes, definitely, if there are opportunities. So there are opportunities continue to work together because the new program, our new program has started now, where we have, instead of 3 priorities, we have 5, and climate and environment is one that stays on top. We also have energy transition, circular economy, innovation, resilience, and inclusive society. But I will focus a bit on climate and environment because I think it's the one that is of most interest for you. The first call for proposals has been launched more or less 1 month ago, on the 22nd of March. It is still running. It will run until the 15th of June 2022. Step 1, call 1, it means that we expect project to submit a kind of concept note or project proposals, partnerships, so not a full proposal. Over summer, we will assess these concept notes, and the one that will get a positive answer can work the whole autumn on their project proposals. So that will then be a complete project proposal. They will have to be submitted by the 15th of December. And we will make then, together with the monitoring committee, the assessment of these proposals, and the projects that get the green light will then start in February 2023. If you can't make it within the first call, there is a possibility also to make up your mind over the year and come with a proposal in November 2022, when the second call for proposals will be launched. I don't know whether this moment right now, if all of the 5 priorities will be addressed also in call 2, most likely yes, but it's not yet an official decision. But these are the 5 priorities that are covered in call 1. So get in touch with us, I would say. We also have an online community where you can register if you are looking for project ideas that are already developed by others, if you are looking for partner organizations to fit into your project idea. We have more than 350 organizations that have registered on the online community. So I think it would be worth to register you as well, just to have a look and to get some ideas. You can also stay in touch with us by means of the other channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel. And yes, thank you for your attention. And I would say register.
All right, so we are running a little tight, unfortunately. So I do want to let you know what we have here in store for the next coming up. Now, this ends our first plenary session, morning session. We're supposed to start our next concurrent session at 11 o'clock in 15 minutes. So that's a little tight. We do have tea and coffee and something to eat outside in the hallway. Session A, which is a discussion towards a common approach to peatland restoration. And session A will occur in this room here, and session B will be in the basement 001, and you can follow the signs to find that session. We'll have a lunch break from 1 to 2, and then the afternoon sessions will begin. At 1 o'clock, we also have a video booth set up in the classroom, a small classroom here by the registration desk. And we encourage all of you to come in and record who you are, what you like about peatlands, what you're up to, and your thoughts on peatlands and European collaborations. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.